my book in June, and since then I've been touring all around and have been basically reading the same chapters and sections over and over again until they're sort of polished like a stone in my hand. And now I'm going to be reading something I've never read before, as is the rule, and that I've written since publication, so it's a little more raw. I just completed a reading from my memoir, Fairyland, at the San Francisco Public Library, when a pretty, petite, middle-aged blonde approached me at the podium. It was my second event in San Francisco, where my dad raised me as a single gay father following the death of my mother. And I was used to meeting up with their old classmates and former boyfriends. But I'd never seen this woman before. I remembered her sitting in the front row, alone, studying me inscrutably as I spoke. After waiting her turn for a signed book, she introduced herself in a soft southern lilt. "I worked with your mother in Atlanta," she said. I nodded. My uncle and his friends came over asking me where we should eat. "I'd like to talk more with you," she interrupted, grabbing my arm. "I'm with family," I answered. "Think you can give me your email?" She looked at me with intense blue eyes. "What I have to tell you, you'll want to hear in person." Bonnie joined us at a cheap Turkish diner across from City Hall. As my uncle and his friends engaged in their own conversation, I breezily chatted with Bonnie, ripping greasy pita over hot lentil soup. Then she told me, "Your mother and I were lovers." I sat in stunned silence. Here I'm on tour with my memoir about being raised by my gay father after the death of my straight mother, and a month after publication, I meet a strange woman who tells me my mother may also have been gay. Had I met Bonnie before publishing my book, I might have told a different story, but had I not published my book, I might never have found Bonnie. When you finish a memoir and admire its solidity, the fresh smell of its pages, the smooth feel of its cover in your hands, it's easy to believe that your story is finished and your work done. I could handle the hard edits and rewrites that came before. The occasional bad review, this I expected, but I was completely unprepared for the stream of characters that re-entered my life following publication of Fairyland. Anyone who's tried to write memoir knows that creating an accurate yet compelling portrait of a time requires a degree of narrative foreshortening. People and events must be emphasized over others to build suspense and story. To keep the reader interested, a writer must build a structure that can hold together the story's varied elements. Moving through drafts to that fact-checked, finished product, the author is lulled into an idea that the story being told is the truth, when in fact it's just one truth. When my parents met, my father described himself as bisexual, to which my mother answered, "That means you can love all of humanity, not just half of it." It was 1968 and they were self-styled revolutionaries. Believing they could and should remake the family, they married, continuing to date on the side. But when my father fell deeply in love with another man, my mother got involved with a patient at the hospital where she worked, an unsuitable match that eventually led to her death. Writing my book, I saw my mother as something of a victim of my father's sexual awakening. He had told her that though he loved her, he could only experience cosmic love with men. I believe that because she couldn't get from him the love that she craved, she started looking outside the relationship. But after meeting Bonnie, I now have to consider the possibility that my mother encouraged his interest in men because she herself wanted the same freedoms he enjoyed. Bonnie's story is just one of many that have emerged since publication of Fairyland. Men and women whom I knew only as first names or initials in my father's journals have stepped forward at my readings or appeared in my inbox, revealing the parts they played in my parents' lives. There's Bill, the photographer, who lived with my parents in a small commune they set up in a dilapidated Atlanta mansion in 1971. After hearing me on the radio, he sent me a disc of 20 pictures I'd never seen before of my parents, and then drove 6 hours to see me read at a Southern literary festival. He had damp eyes when we said goodbye. "Your parents were very important in my life," he said. There's Mark, a former boyfriend of my dad's from the late 70s in San Francisco. Mark was fresh out of school when they met. My father was one of his first same-sex relationships. After breaking up, they fell out of touch. Mark married a woman and had 2 children. He didn't know what had happened to my dad, let alone that he died of AIDS, until he heard me on public radio a few months back. He's since sent me half a dozen emails about his life, including scans of letters he wrote about my father. I found the corresponding entries in my father's journals. He's even come out to his adult son about his gay past. And there's Barbara, the ex-wife of my father's ex-lover, John. The last time I saw her was 13 years ago. They were married, living in a restored Victorian home with a beautiful teenage son and daughter. I was introduced to them as a friend of the family, quietly wondering what, if any, of their father's gay past they'd ever learn. And on the last night of my visit, John pulled from the closet a beat-up paper bag stuffed with love letters my father had sent him, which he gave to me and which I used to write my book. But it wasn't until meeting Barbara on the occasion of my tour that I learned of their divorce and how that teenage daughter I met is now transitioning on her way to becoming a man. Barbara is on the board of the local chapter of PFLAG. It turns out we're both proud members of queer families. After meeting Barbara for brunch, we went dress shopping together. As I turned before the mirror, seeking her opinion on a vintage gingham sundress, she said how nice it was for her because she can only take her kids to boys' departments now. It was nice for me too. Barbara is also my mother's name. Reuniting with characters from my parents' past has been thrilling and confusing. I'd love to have interviewed these people before finishing my book, but now that they've re-entered my life following publication, I'm not sure what, if anything, is my responsibility. Am I to write more or just listen? How do I properly respect the range of memories and stories that my memoir has provoked? Or should I just see these people as part of my expanding family, joined through our shared queer history? A line from my father's poem that closes Fairyland keeps coming to mind. It may be the only truth I can really count on. What seems most outlandish in our autobiography is what really happened. Thank you.